Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back. Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, get it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. We got quite a few things on the docket for today. The league is heating up. We'll talk about Daryl Morey. Man, he's had a rough week. Melo, CP3, and Pat Bev all came out talking about some of the inconsistencies involving Daryl Morey and some of the personality and communication issues that they've experienced similar to James Harden. And speaking of personalities, LeBron James had come out and tweeted against his television partner ESPN about them no longer ranking his son for the next upcoming NBA draft. And also we'll touch base on the 65 game rule and the multiple layers and just dynamics that are playing out within that rule as it's tied to players' contracts, the NBA's ability to please television partners, and also the revenue split between players and owners. And last but not least, what's going on with the NBA officiating? We're at a time where now the league is in bed with the gambling companies, revenues are up, but the officiating issues are so crazy. You got coaches and players no longer caring about the fines, all the way up from the top teams of the league, and even the personnel from the teams at the bottom of the league with no expectation that are pretty much tanking. Even they're making complaints. So we'll take a look at what's going on there. Now, one interesting dynamic that played out in this year's trade deadline was the fact that Ramona Shelburne and Woj had stated that Daryl Morey had inquired to the Phoenix Suns about Kevin Durant. And not only did he inquire about Kevin Durant, he also asked about Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. That statement about Booker and Beal got retracted, but not the inquiry of Kevin Durant. And as far as Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, they better watch their backs, because with Daryl Morey's history, that man is not to be trusted. And with the new CBA rules, the only way this could have really worked is for sure for Tobias Harris to be shipped out and Tyrese Maxey being on that rookie scale contract about to hit unrestricted free agency. That would have been a tricky move right there. I don't know how they would have finessed the money to make it work, especially with the Phoenix Suns being over the second apron in the luxury tax. But I don't put it past Daryl Morey, as he's known to be quite a deal maker. But his only Achilles heel is team building and handling player personnel. As in his final years in Houston, he pretty much dumbed down a lot of his players' games to being just another cog in the wheel. We've seen guys like PJ Tucker make complaints, James Harden, Carmelo Anthony, Austin Rivers, Daniel House. The list goes on and on. Most of the Rockets players from 2019 were very frustrated upon the exit, and it even led to James Harden asking for a trade. But this week has been very telling for Daryl Morey, as he comes from that analytical tree, that Sam Hinkie tree. But in the past few weeks, a lot of things have come into light about Daryl Morey, as two former players outed him as well as a current player. But I gotta say, there's something definitely up with these analytical guys, because they never take the human element into consideration. And the same thing applies for Daryl Morey. The situation he was put in dealing with Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony, two players that were dominant in their primes, as they was going through their transitional phase later on in their career, they somehow ran into the guy that just does not understand basic human interaction. And these type of scenarios this season kept on repeating, as he had a fallout with James Harden and Patrick Beverley had outed him. But to start off, Carmelo Anthony had reflected on his time in Houston and some of his runnings with Daryl Morey. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I'm in Africa, bro. Chilling, family. I get a call. Houston. Melo, you are our missing piece.
How old are you at this time?
Oh, this is 2017. Like this.
You're early 30s.
I'm 33. I don't know.
Okay.
30.
All right. Just for everybody to know, you're 33 years old.
You know, I'm still
They
rocking.
ain't like you're 38. Then they trying to give them a restructure.
I was just an all-star in New York 2 years ago. You get what I'm saying? Like, come on. I went from New York to going to OKC after 24. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, wasn't a talent. It ain't nothing no basketball wise. So, yo, boom, Houston calls, hey, we need to make this happen. You're the piece. You see what happened to us last year. We was missing this. What you can bring, all of that.
Now, something that Melo might have left out, I believe CP3 is the reason why Daryl Morey made that call. He was trying to please Chris Paul, especially after he made the decision as a free agent. So presidents and GMs from time to time try to please their star players. And even Paul George has stated the reason why he re-signed in OKC was because they honored his wish for them to go out and trade for Melo.
Where's CP at?
Because CP's in Houston.
CP's in Houston.
Is Mike D'Antoni in Houston?
Mike D'Antoni in Houston.
Okay.
PG's in Houston. I mean, CP, James, PJ Tucker, Capella,
Mm-hmm.
Gerald Green. You know what I mean? It's like they just lost. They were just up 3-1. You know what I mean? Like they just lost that. Trevor Ariza, they get Trevor out of there, which is why they were saying you are the missing piece. Right? I already knew going into Houston that they was looking at me as a Trevor Ariza, and there's no knock to Trevor Ariza, but they wanted that type of mentality, somebody who was a 3-and-D guy, somebody who didn't mind sitting in the corner, didn't mind cutting, didn't mind, playing off of those.
Why would they come and get you?
Facts. Wade is asking a great question. Melo is none of that. Sitting in the corner, cutting off, moving off ball, making cuts. None of that is Melo. Just the word 3-and-D. Melo's a 3-point part. But the defense, fuck out of here.
This is my question. I'm glad you asked this question. I'm asking them that. So how do you see me in this offense?
Right.
Because I know y'all are layups and threes. I got it. I'm a rhythm guy, right? But I see CP playing, so I'm like, okay, CP is kind of a similar mid-range guy. Got to get to it. Got to get a rhythm. You know what I mean? I'm okay. He's there. So, they would accept that from me. Man, I get there. I get to Houston, man. They tell me, D-Wade, no mid-range shots.
This is where some of the analytical guys get lost right here. How even before the game starts, you automatically phase out a part of the offense when you don't even know how the defenders are going to guard you. That doesn't even make any sense. And in the playoffs, the higher up you go, the deeper and deeper into the rounds you get. You're playing against teams that have 5 to 7 guys who are in sync defensively. So how the hell can you just eliminate the mid-range just off rip even before the game start? That shit doesn't make any fucking sense. It sounds like some regular season shit. But keep in mind, at this time, the Houston Rockets had the NBA Finals in sight from season to season, as they were a top 3 to 4 team in the West, year in, year out.
What? You brought me here for what?
They talking to me. They ain't talking to me. They ain't talking. They talking to somebody else.
I'm looking at CP like behind me on the chair. I'm like, see, what? He's like, leave it alone. It's only 40. They broke it down numbers. We only allowed 17 mid-range shots a game. Here's who could take them. Broke them down.
Interesting right there. Melo said, I looked at CP3 and CP3 said, leave it alone. Once again, I believe the only reason Melo went to Houston was upon CP3's request. Daryl Morey was just trying to please his star, but he did not want Melo there.
CP can take the majority of the mid-range shots. James can take. Melo, you get maybe one. Maybe one. I had 25,000 points from mid-range. You tell me I only can take one mid-range game a game, but you want me to shoot 12 threes.
Okay.
No. If I ain't shooting this mid-range, I ain't gonna be
able to get no rhythm for them 12 threes.
Not at all.
And in the few appearances Melo had in Houston, he missed a lot of open 3-point shots. I'm not sure if his legs were still the same because towards the end of his career, the last few years in New York and also the few years in OKC, he kept pump faking a lot every time he drove to the rim. So that's pretty much the first sign you start to see players, they don't really have that same athleticism anymore when they start pump faking nonstop, especially for guys like Melo, who used to just go to the rack and just bang it.
They held that against it. And yo, D-Wade, I had to swallow my pride and ego so much in Houston. Like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it because everybody says I can't do it.
Nobody believes you're gonna be able to do it.
Nobody believes
Yeah,
that.
I ain't think you can do it.
He's gonna
either.
come off the bench. He's
Yeah.
like, it's like,
Okay.
Now, it's not just coming off the bench. It's not just about that, Melo. Keep in mind, with the system the Rockets already had, in which they pretty much finished top 2 in the West year in, year out. They already had a few guys coming off the bench, and Melo might have had to been at least a second to third guy coming off the bench. They already had guys like Austin Rivers already built into their system, Daniel House, Kenneth Faried, Gerald Green, James Ennis III. They already had a plethora of guys that was already built in and understood their roles already. And them almost making it to the finals the year before, they're really not going to take a lot of pushback from Melo not wanting to fit into that role.
Can't do that.
bro. I never said I ain't coming off the bench. I told y'all do what y'all gotta do. I'm just here. Like, y'all do what y'all gotta do. Right? Go there. Well, we want to keep PJ in the starting lineup. Cool. Go ahead. I already accepted the fact that I'm coming off the bench. Cool.
The drip god, aka PJ Tucker, you know, he was playing that great defense in Houston. It was playing him like almost 38 minutes plus a game. He was the only real defender at times.
D-Wade, I went on a spree of like averaging like 24, like for like 7 out of 10 games.
I remember you was hooping.
Bro.
He was hooping, but Houston was losing. Houston was losing, and it was looking like nothing like they were the year prior. That was the issue. They already had a system where they were a top 3 to 2 team in the West year in, year out. All of a sudden, they got Melo, a guy that's going to want more volume shots. He's going to want more usage. And just out of nowhere, they have a slow start to the season. So you ask yourself, how is analytical man, aka Daryl Morey, going to really handle this? Or is he even equipped to have proper communication with CP3 and Melo to make sure that the roles are understood?
Come back to San Antonio. We're on the San Antonio trip. In the room, I get the call. Hey, I'm coming in town. We need to meet. We like 3 and 5 or something like that. Need to meet. I'm thinking he wanted to meet with me to figure out what's going on with the team and the players. And I don't want to say his name. I don't. Come to my room and says,
Now, right there, I wonder if he's talking about James Harden. Something is going on with one of the players. Melo sort of alludes throughout this conversation that James Harden might have been one of the players that was in the know of him leaving Houston.
yeah, I think your services are no longer needed.
Straight to it.
I say,
No foreplay.
no foreplay.
Damn. Sounds like he had all the foreplay with James Harden. I'm pretty sure he spoke to him before making that decision. I know James Harden gave that A-OK.
I say, man, get out of here, man. What you talking about? Man, we gonna figure this shit like that. Like I gotta take it on the Joker side. He's like, man, yeah, we gonna figure, but nah, we just don't see you part of the plans going into playoffs. Playoffs? We are 9 games into the season. You talking about playoffs? So now I'm getting serious. He's just like very stoic and like, well, this is what it's gonna be, and this is, and I say, damn, bro, like you don't have a soul, man. You don't have a heart. You don't.
It's not all that, Melo. He just don't have great communication skills. Number one, he should have told Chris Paul, you are not a good fit for this team right now. He should have just told him straight up. Instead, it's obvious that Daryl Morey was tap dancing around, and then when you came through, you didn't work out. It was an easy decision. You could just tell from the way he did it. He already knew this shit was never going to work.
I can take it, but the fact that you just came in here and just said, we don't have no place for you on this team. And I asked you why, and you tells me, well, it's just not a fit. I thought it was going to fit. It's not going to fit.
No, he never fucking thought it was going to fit. He was just trying to please CP3. Once again, Daryl Morey, man. Oh my God, this guy. It's like he put himself into weird circumstances for no reason. Just man up and tell CP3, no thank you. We're not going to go out and get Melo.
What's not going to fit? So now, wheels are turning. Call CP. Go CP. Listen, bruh, you my family. You my brother. If you knew anything about this,
Not you knew anything about this.
this is real talk. This
I
is
know,
1
I
o'clock
know.
in the morning. Yo, come to my room right now, champ. Like, he like, what? I ain't there. Now I don't give a fuck where you at. I need to holler at you. Yo, you know anything about this? Come in the room. What? Man, I swear I ain't. Yo, see, don't lie to me, bro. Like, come on. Like, I'm hurt at this point. Like, nigga, you my best friend. Like, nah. Like, I'm gonna find out what's going on. I said, see, I just need you to tell me. I asked him 3 times, bro. CP will tell you that. I asked him 3 times. Did you know anything about this? He like, nah.
See, the fact that Melo keeps confiding in CP3 throughout this whole Houston Rockets situation, it shows you CP3 was the reason why Melo was there. He definitely made that request to Daryl Morey.
I promise you. He did. So I'm like, oh, all right, my nigga ain't. You know what I mean? Like, all right, boom. Like, I'm gonna figure this out. Like, I'm gonna figure it out. See, don't even trip. Call somebody else. Yo, you know about this? Nah. What's going on? But
I'm wondering who's somebody else. You see, Melo does not say the name. I believe Melo has issues with James Harden. And this is the player he's talking about right now. Because James Harden would be the only one to know because he's running the ship in Houston. Daryl Morey's whole rise to fame is James Harden. So at this time, if James Harden wanted Melo to stay on the team, he would have stayed on the team.
I was just with you at dinner. So of course you don't got nothing to do with this. I'm just with you. You know I'm about to head a meeting. And to this day, I can't figure out what happened. I don't know what happened. I get rumblings of,
Right.
right, how the game go. We was in that seat before, you know what I'm saying? Just a
Yeah.
matter of what you do with that seat.
Yeah.
Interesting. We was in that seat before. He's talking to Wade as being a team leader, the team captain, the team superstar. So who do you think he's referring to? He's referring to James Harden. It's James Harden, man. He's the only odd man out in this whole situation. He has the most say-so in Houston. But once again, Daryl Morey and his fucking communication skills are poor. You can just tell. It's too many circumstances.
You feel me? So now that year happens. I'm off away from the game, and I say, I'm done with it.
So you were done with the game after that?
Yeah, because I ain't had no answers. No answers. None. 28 the night before, 25.
You have no answer why you sitting at home. You like, why am I sitting at
You
home?
told me I should come to the game, but sit behind the bench. What the fuck is what? Oh, you really trying to embarrass me now? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You really trying to make me flip to make me look bad? Like, no, I'm not gonna give you that. You know what? You asked me to leave. I'm cool. I ain't going to the game. Don't ask. You know what I mean? Like, you asked me to leave basically the team, and then you asked me to come to the games. I'm not doing that. No disrespect. We ain't gonna make no scene out of this though.
That's crazy. He kicked him off the team to ask him to sit behind the bench. That shit is wild.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna walk away.
Yeah, but it ain't that easy.
I'm gonna deal with it on my time though.
Okay.
Yeah, so throughout the course of this segment, you'll see that this type of miscommunication with Daryl Morey repeats over and over. As now we're going to hear from CP3 and his experience with Daryl Morey, especially being traded from Houston to go to OKC. And keep in mind, CP3, just like Melo, they're in the phase of their career where they're transitioning from being that dominant star to being sort of in a different role as they kind of phase out into the sunset towards retirement. And during a sensitive time period for players who were once dominant, it has to be handled a certain way, and the communication has to be clear. But once again, Daryl Morey's not that guy for it.
I can't just act like ain't nothing happening. But to go to Melo's situation, Melo told he told you, like, when he texted me, what Melo tell you? You know, yeah, oh man.
Melo
Boy,
told us his
that's too
version.
much.
What is your
Yeah.
version of the moment
So this
that
is what
y'all came?
Yes.
Y'all met in the room.
yes.
All right.
But the way
The hotel room.
Yeah, so the way I got to the hotel room is crazy. I had the family in town. We was in San Antonio.
Okay.
I had Jada and the kids, and we was at Andretti's or something like that, like a race car place with Rudy Gay and his family, right? So we there, my family, and I get a text from Melo, and it said, "Bro, did you know?" Hold up. I called Melo, and I'm gonna tell you the whole story. And Melo, I know how tough you are, but I'm gonna tell you.
No,
for
he
real.
talked about it.
Right, I'm gonna tell you. So I called Mel. I said, "Dawg, what's going on?" He said, "Man," he said, "Daryl came to his room."
Mm-hmm.
Right, and if you know Daryl Morey, he
Don't know him.
yeah, he no people skills. Real talk, you know what I'm saying? Like he don't really understand how to talk to people. And so as soon as Melo told me that, I got Jada, my kids, and we got up. I said, "Rudy, I gotta go." I went back to the hotel, right? Called Melo, went to his room, knocked on the door or whatnot. And I was in there with Melo for a long time, a couple hours. And like Mel was in tears, man. Like seriously, and I was right there with him because I know how much he gave to the game. But throughout the whole process of him coming to Houston, me and Melo would talk, about the start and about all of this stuff. I never, said this is what's gonna happen or that's not gonna happen. So he tells me what happened with Daryl or whatnot, and I was like, what? What he said? He told him came to his room, told him he'd get him a flight back to New York. Yeah, how you say this to this man, first and foremost? So then he told him, so we played San Antonio the next day, right? We were gonna play San Antonio the next day.
Yeah.
Try to tell that man that he could get on the team plane and fly back with us after the game. I ain't never, you something else, boy. I ain't never really told, this is some of the most disrespectful shit I'd have never seen, right? So,
Melo said something about him, told him to sit behind the bench or something like that too.
Oh, see, I don't know that. He might have said that, but I know he
Like
said
come and
something
sit behind
about
the bench and then probably fly with the team and plane.
fly on the team plane.
Damn. So this gets even worse. It's not just Melo off the team, then sit behind the bench. It's Melo, don't come to the San Antonio game and then fly back with us afterwards. This shit is crazy.
Back to Houston, right? After you just told the man you don't need his services no more. Nigga, please. Excuse me.
Hold it.
Uh-oh, CP3 getting out of character. Oh, man, CP3 getting out of character. But hey, you starting to see why James Harden had the fallout with Daryl. You're starting to see why.
Excuse me. So, right? I think I might have hit Daryl or something like that too, and just told him how fucked up he was and how disrespectful that was. And we played against San Antonio that next night. I got a plane on my own. Me, Jada, and Melo flew back to Houston. Because you was not gonna do that and then expect him to get on the team plane afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also too, when Melo told his side of the story, it wasn't just Melo in tears. I feel like you were too.
Absolutely.
Well, you
That's
left
what I
that out
said.
when you said your
No,
story.
I said Melo. I said me too.
No, you did not.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I thought I did.
Yeah, well, Melo did.
I thought I did. Yeah, no.
But it was an emotional moment, right?
No,
Being in there.
straight up. I thought I said I was too.
Yeah.
I said Melo's in tears. I said me too. Well, I'm saying me too, because I know him. I know the type of work he had put into the game.
Man.
I knew being away from the family. You know what I'm saying? Seeing Cayenne growing up and all this, and it's crazy. And I think that's why even now, like when I see him with Cayenne getting to show up, just like when I see you with your kids getting to show up, because I'm gonna tell you this real quick, that not to do with that story, but this whole cycle, this whole NBA thing is the wildest thing, because this was my dream, to make it to the NBA, right? My kids, my wife and everybody, they know that. They root for you, they support you, they do all these things. But my parents, I'm not in the NBA without my dad. Without my parents for sure, but without my dad coaching me and, you know, giving me the tools that I need, right? And so then when we have kids who have these same dreams and aspirations, it's the hardest thing because I'm not getting an opportunity to be there and do for them
like
what
your dad
my
did
folks
for you.
did
Yeah,
for
your
me,
mom did for you,
especially
yes.
my dad. So it's dope to see y'all and especially Melo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you will be, you know, at some point you will be there more because, you know, he will continue to have basketball life and your basketball life will have come to an end.
Yeah.
So you would definitely have that moment, but 1,000%, it's one of the dopest things that you can do.
But that Houston Melo thing was wild. But throughout the whole time, and Melo know I'd tell him right now if he was right here. So I don't get any alerts, right, on my phone. I don't get no alerts.
Notifications off.
No notifications. I'm talking about like Bleacher Report, ESPN. Like I don't be no. When I was union president, I cut all that off because I was having to deal with real stuff, not like speculation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of stuff I find out.
People calling you because of speculation. You like, no, this is what's really happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm always having to tell somebody the real story because that's what it is. So a lot of stuff I find out is because Jada tell me. You know what I mean? It's like somebody got punched the other night and somebody was like, yo, such got punched. I was like, what? You know, and then that was how I operated. But when
somebody got punched the other night.
Yeah, they did. Hope you all right. When Melo came to Houston, it was all these things coming out about if he's starting or
coming off the bench,
and all this stuff, like, right?
Yep.
So I called Melo, right? I was like, look, if you come to Houston or whatnot, we sort of had a starting five already, you know what I'm saying, with PJ and all this stuff. And it was crazy because it was almost like when I was in college because PJ got hurt.
Oh, like your point guard in college.
Yes, PJ got hurt in camp. And so the first few preseason games, Melo started.
I remember that.
But throughout that whole situation, I don't never care what they talking about in the media. We doing real life. You know what I'm saying?
Trust and believe, I know that.
We talking in real life. And so if you gonna let your homie like have to guess what's going on in the media, then it ain't gonna work.
Now that's interesting. In the beginning of that season, PJ got hurt. I'm wondering if Daryl Morey was put in a compromising position because I'm sure after PJ got hurt, especially in the beginning of that season when they struggled, he did not want to give those minutes to Melo. But due to the fact that Melo is a superstar or was a former superstar, it will look crazy for his brand for Daryl Morey to give his minutes, let's say, to another player like Daniel House or split the minutes in between Austin Rivers and then still give Melo about 10 to 15 minutes to 20 minutes a game. There is a lot of politics with having players who were even former superstars. As this season you can see with the Lakers, they don't really have the power to just trade LeBron James. They were contacted by the Warriors and Jeannie Buss told the Warriors it's okay for them to speak to LeBron. But with some of these guys, the NBA hierarchy is so out of order and just the power and leverage that they have. Their own franchises have to actually come fine with them about them getting traded. This shit is crazy. But going back to the circumstance right here, I don't think Daryl Morey actually forethought this, that somebody would get hurt and it would look like Melo would be the next man up, even though deep down in his mind he understands they need a 3-and-D wing. Melo had mentioned that earlier in his interview. Houston was looking for a 3-and-D player who can be like a Trevor Ariza type. That's exactly what he said. And Melo's none of those things.
It ain't gonna work. But Melo, through and through, because at the end of the day, my relationship and my friendship with him was more important to me than anything that would happen there in Houston. So I made sure that I communicated with him.
So you have, so you had your own Daryl Morey experience right after that.
Hey boy, y'all is something else on this joint. Y'all is something else.
CP3 don't want to get into it, but they about to get into it, man. What's his issue with Daryl?
Have mercy.
I'm just saying because I don't think you ever had a chance to clear your chest.
Wait, talk to me about that. Do I know about that?
Yes, you do. Because y'all three had a conversation about that before, but it never came out just yet.
Hey, listen, everybody here. Don't ever go
Come on, D-Wade, stop fronting about it, man. You know what's going down with Daryl.
On your family's podcast, all right? Don't ever
no
go
personal things about you.
I'm just saying, but just say space, man. This is a safe space.
Everybody listening, don't ever go on your family's podcast because they gonna ask you about stuff that.
It's a safe space. It's a safe space.
Safe space to the world.
This is your term.
Wait, I don't know if I know about this. Wait, let me.
I'm gonna let say how you want to say it.
Well, shit, we're here now, huh?
Was this in Houston?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh man.
Was this at the end of your Houston tenure that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it or you want to move on?
No, I tell you, so...
we can move on.
I basically got myself traded from Houston. I called Daryl.
Did you really get yourself traded from Houston, CP3? Or did Daryl Morey do some fucked up shit?
And I called the coach, Dan Tony, to tell him somebody could come end up playing on the team with us. But what happened was Daryl called me while I was in Vegas, right? And what's crazy is I seen Shea in Vegas. So the night that started everything is when Kawhi went to the Clippers and then Paul George got traded to the Clippers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Russ was still in OKC and Shea went to...
he went to OKC for the trade, yep.
Yeah, for the trade. So I actually talked to Russ that night, but then I seen Shea in Vegas. When I seen Shea, I dapped up Shea. I was like, Shea, man, it's gonna be good for you, man. You're gonna get to hoop. You're gonna get to do your thing in OKC.
Yeah.
Damn. The whole time CP3 was talking to his teammate.
So then I go over to the gym to work out. I'm in Vegas and Daryl called me. Daryl was like, hey, Chris, I was just calling you because we was trying to figure out if we could possibly get Russ to, what's his name, to Houston. He was like, I was just calling you to, what'd he say? Just to make sure you wouldn't want to go to OKC. I was like, no, why? I done moved 15 people to Houston. And he was like, okay, I was just making sure. He was like, I would never trade you to somewhere you didn't want to go because you chose to come to us from the Clippers, right?
Okay.
Like I chose to go to Houston from LA.
Yes, you did. Okay.
So that's what he had said to me. So then I go down to Peach Jam. I'm in Atlanta at Peach Jam, and you know Colin Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
Colin had came down to Peach Jam to work out with me, and I'm at the house chilling, and I was on the phone with Jada, and next thing you know, bloop, it said that I was getting traded to what's his name, and then my phone started ringing, and it was Daryl calling.
You were getting traded to OKC.
Yeah, so I ain't know. Then Daryl called me. Phone started ringing. It was Daryl called me. And Daryl, like I told you, I'm very matter of fact. Daryl was like, hey, man, it just moved so fast. You know, that's what he said, it moved so fast. I said, it's all good. I said, I just want you to tell me one thing. You said you weren't going to trade me, right, to OKC. He said, yep, I said that, but I said, that's all I need to know. Yeah.
Well, that's that.
Yeah. Okay.
But that happens.
Yeah.
Right. So you
unfortunately,
but it happens. But
it's
part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the business or whatnot. So
I think that's important to share because athletes who listen to this podcast, they need to understand, even Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers, it's a part of the business for them as well, right? What someone tells you probably ain't gonna hold true. Right, like you know, I left Miami for a lot of reasons because you buy into what people tell you, and then when it doesn't show up in the way that you wanted to, now your feelings are hurt.
Yeah,
but there's a difference, D-Wade. Pat Riley looked you in the face and told you he's not going to give you that money that you wanted. See, that's the difference. Pat Riley has the balls and respect for you to look you in your eye and let you know what's what. Daryl Morey's not like that. He'll pretend like he's siding with you, and then all of a sudden, when your back's turned, this guy pulls off another deal. That's been the reputation that's been following Morey from Houston all the way to Philly.
It's that, and I think when you've been playing for a while or whatnot, and you sort of understand the business, right? Like you know, like when you played for a while, like you know how the trade calls happen. You know how everybody always say, it just moves so fast. Like, we sort of know how it goes.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
we got agents. We know the phone calls that happen, and then there's a whole trade call that's got to happen for
What
it to
about
happen.
Chris?
Yeah, I think it's just hard. I think it's hard conversations that have to be had, and you know what they say, time heals, you know, certain things or whatnot. But you learn.
So that was example number 2 of Daryl Morey kind of tap dancing around his words, not really being a trustworthy person, even though it's all business. You still gotta look a man in his eyes and let him know what's going down, what you need, what's gonna happen. And this same exact scenario played out once again with Patrick Beverley being on the Philadelphia 76ers, as Daryl Morey tried to deny to Patrick Beverley about trading him to the Milwaukee Bucks. Straight up to his face too.
So we playing in Denver, and I hit Daryl Morey with the, "Hey, I'm getting traded." You know. No, not you. No, of course not.
So he's a liar.
But you gotta think, you feel me? Like, you know, it's probably a bigger move that's about to happen. The uncertainty of, you know, you want to win right now. You know, a player like me, I want to win right now. So, and I get a chance to be with Doc too, and my coach Rex. Ooh, it's lit. It's lit. It's lit. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's looking like Pat Bev is back to his Clipper days with Doc Rivers. But hey, at the end of the day, Daryl Morey, too many fallouts. And I don't know why he keeps denying what he does. It's part of the business. The players know. It's almost like the military. Guys are going to have to move from place to place. The players understand that, hey, I could be traded any day. There's just something about the heavy analytical GMs and coaches, especially in the mid-2010s. The Sam Hinkie, Daryl Moreys, and the various coaches that have been around the league. That era of the NBA has had some of the biggest blowouts we've ever seen because there was never a plan B. And an underestimated thing about the guys just being heavy on analytics, the data doesn't normally work if the younger generation of kids that are coming up right before they get into the league, if they're working on different aspects of their game. So there could be another generation where their ball handling skills are even higher. Maybe their three-point shooting is not as good. So how are you going to try to run the same type of game? You have to adapt according to what generation is coming in. Right now, in the beginning stages of the 2020 era, we see the rise of the skilled big man. So then the data would have to start to skew according to how to make that big man more efficient, what to put around him. Nothing about the basketball game should be what can we take away from the game. The same way Daryl Morey said no mid-ranges. Why would you begin to squeeze out your options when the whole floor is available? And just that ideology alone in present day today is already outdated, as the floor is so spaced out with all the brand new talent coming in, being skilled from ball handling to shooting. You got to guard guys everywhere throughout the floor, and you add on top of that illegal defense. Now you have enough space to actually take mid-range shots at a higher efficiency clip. But at the end of the day, the heavy data approach is missing the human aspect to it when dealing with a game that's based off a team concept. And for that, your personnel management got to be on point. And you got to take into consideration. And that's something that this heavy data approach has always been missing, especially the psyche in the playoffs when the referees begin to tuck in their whistles and guys begin to feel the pressure of the game as the floor tends to shrink and the pace begins to slow down. But when it comes to Daryl Morey, he's one hell of a deal maker. But Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, you better watch your back. So with ESPN changing their draft rankings on Bronny James and pushing him back to 2025, I'm always emphasizing the power dynamics that's going in the media right now, especially with the ever-changing landscape. And you can see it play out no further than this situation, as LeBron James himself is one of these last mega superstar NBA players to enter the league in which the media landscape was transitioning and went from more of a ecosystem-based entity to now on his way out, it's more personality-based, and individuals now have the ability to broadcast themselves to millions of people as distribution changed because of the technology, i.e. social media. But once again, right here, we're going to see a very interesting dynamic play out because Ryan Clark, one of the guys from the Pivot podcast, and you guys should definitely check them out. They are killing it. But he had once worked for ESPN and he left them and went out on his own. And as the landscape changed and it's more personality based, ESPN not only had to come back and come to an agreement with him for a rehire, but they also made him the highest paid NFL analyst on the network. But once again, the ecosystem nowadays in the media is more personality based. And Ryan Clark had actually went on to pivot and brought to light some of the hypocrisies with LeBron James and this whole Bronny James experience. Once again, the media landscape is different nowadays. Entities like ESPN have to go more personality based, especially with guys who can actually bring their own audience. And you can see it play out no further than Pat McCaffrey calling out one of ESPN's top executives live on air and having no repercussions. So when it comes to this circumstance with LeBron James and ESPN, best believe they're in a partnership. But once again, Ryan Clark had just became the highest paid NFL analyst on ESPN. Let's take a look at what he had to say about LeBron James' reaction about ESPN changing their rankings on his son.
To me, it's not about Bronny James, it's about LeBron James. It's about LeBron James, who once tweeted, "My son is better than a lot of these guys I watch on League Pass." It's about LeBron James saying out loud, "I want to play long enough to play with my son," which is.
And it's also about LeBron James even mentioning that he could start for the Lakers at this very moment. I mean, a lot of his teammates might feel a type of way about him saying things like that. But it seems like more than being a Laker, it seems like LeBron's priorities are things outside of the Lakers, like playing with Bronny.
The presumptive way to say, I expect him to be in the NBA. The first person to ever talk about Bronny James in the NBA was LeBron James.
And make no mistake about it, LeBron James, ever since his son went to Sierra Canyon, he has cameras and a whole production kind of crew following him around, and they're kind of creating like this Netflix type of documentary. So all this has already kind of been made in a film format from since he was a freshman at that school. So this is definitely planned. And you add on top of that his relationship with ESPN, now that the media landscape has changed and is more personality based, in order for ESPN to get more access to LeBron, they kind of got to be on his good side. That's why they go on nonstop and promote him throughout their social medias more than most of these teams. But as far as LeBron James, the more successful he is, the more successful ESPN is. That relationship is symbiotic right now.
So you now can't, when the projections aren't what you want, the projections aren't what you thought, you can't now be upset. You can't now go on the defensive. You can't ask people whose jobs it is to project who will be drafted, to project when they'll be drafted, to not include your son if he has played well enough to be there. The problem is this: it wasn't top 10 in 2024. The problem is it wasn't what you'd hoped or what you'd expected. And because of that, you now feel some way where you've gotten defensive. And I do love LeBron James, the father. I do love LeBron James, the family man. But there's also a reason that a kid that's averaging 5 points a game gets highlights on SportsCenter because he has an alley-oop layup. It's because he is Bronny James. It's a reason why a high school kid who's not the top player in the country has a documentary on him. It's because he's Bronny James. And so all of this comes with the territory. I think the weirdest part or saddest part or most ironic part is that when this mock draft came out, it didn't come out as a bad thing. People were celebrating that Bronny James would one day be drafted. It's just that it's not the King James sort of hype, and I believe that that has affected LeBron.
Now that was very well eloquently put by Ryan Clark. And remember, this is the highest paid NFL analyst now at ESPN. And you're seeing in real time the power dynamics shift, because people who work for ESPN cannot talk about LeBron James in a manner like this. But Ryan Clark is very talented, as he eloquently put this in very practical terms. But it wouldn't shock me if LeBron James was made aware of ESPN changing their rankings way ahead of time. The tweet was already planned. And this is sort of like, kind of to soften the blow, to make him look like, the supporting father. That's how deep that ESPN and LeBron James relationship goes. But again, the current media landscape being more personality driven than entity driven is giving Ryan Clark the power to speak like this. But you're going to hear right here from Dan Lebron, when the landscape was changing and it wasn't more personality driven, how ESPN had people's tongues kind of, on a rope. Guys couldn't really say what they wanted to say, especially pertaining to LeBron James. You guys check it out.
All right, so let me tell you where the backstory is, because I think
Where I need to be.
you guys will find fascinating sort of the corridors of power and how some of this stuff works. So John Skipper, the CEO of Meadowlark, was running ESPN, and I was there. I got suspended for silly things. I put up billboards at LeBron's return to Cleveland saying, "You're welcome, Miami," and I got suspended for that.
Suspended for that?
I got suspended for that. It was a joke. It was funny. It was great. I got suspended for silly things.
So right there, you heard how sensitive ESPN was with people just trolling LeBron James. Just Dan Lebron putting up a billboard saying "You welcome Miami" got him a suspension from ESPN. Because remember, they're in a partnership with LeBron James. The ability for ESPN to have access to him is very important, so they got to be on his good side. And that's why you see the overpraising of LeBron. If he wants his son to come up through the rankings, even though he has a bit of a heart condition, he's still projected to be an NBA draft pick, even though he's playing for a USC team who's at the bottom of their conference at the moment. But still, he gets a lot of accolades and praises, more than guys who are top players in his own draft class. But once again, the key takeaway is you're seeing the power dynamic shift within the media landscape of how now it's becoming more personality driven, and the importance to have access to some of these stars. Guys like LeBron James is using that leverage to have ESPN craft his image in a certain way, or just any other business ventures or just ventures for his own children, to craft and promote those things a certain way to please him. And hey, we're getting a front row seat to see this all play out in real time. And the power dynamic that's happening right now with Pat McCaffrey and that ESPN executive, of him just calling him out live on air and getting no repercussions, is only the beginning of this paradigm shift. So the 65 game rule this season has been quite interesting because it's tied into multiple things, multiple rules, multiple structures, particularly the way the Players Association is even organized. And also the owners very cleverly tied this rule into a team rule, which is enforcing the superstars to play on nationally televised games. If they don't, teams could be looking at fines. That's a whole separate rule, but at the same time it ties in. So there's multiple layers to this. And we're seeing players beginning to show frustrations about it, particularly the superstars, as they're going to be most affected, but they only really represent 1% of the whole player pool. And again, this whole situation is multi-layered, and this is by design because these billionaire owners have just multiple organization of lawyers that have years and years of understanding contract language and how to tie things together in order to get out of certain circumstances. Because even though the 65 game rule only affects 1% of the players, who are the ones that normally qualify for all NBA teams, thus getting the Supermax contracts, who in a way receive the bulk of the revenue in that 50-50 split, which nowadays, the way the owners actually organized it with the league, I believe the players have 1 or 2 percentage points higher than the owners do on that revenue split. Because even though the NBA players with the new CBA take a higher percentage of the revenue, are now going to have to overcome that 65 game rule. That's just one layer to it. And the first complainers, of course, are going to be that 1%. Guys like Tyrese Halliburton calling it a stupid rule. Jokic saying that, hey, you shouldn't force guys to play if they're injured. Jaylen Brown speaking on how he wants to see the rule lowered to about 58 games. And then even with as far as Stephen Curry saying that the rule should only be tied to the MVP award, not the all NBA award, which affects players' money. So the group that I like to call the 1%ers of the NBA, the guys who are going to get Supermax contracts, they're the first ones to complain. And again, the owners are very crafty in this whole, I would say, contract language. Because now that the league is entering into a new TV deal and their television partners actually coming up to them saying, hey, we need more superstars to be on the floor. It's affecting our ratings. It's affecting the overall product. Can you make this change? The owners now have turned around and instituted a team rule that's somehow tied to players' contracts. And when I say a team rule, I'm talking about the rule where superstar players have to be at the nationally televised games. And that rule, which is outside of the 65 game rule, it's a team rule. And team rules can only be voted by the owners. They do not need to collectively bargain with the Players Association in regards to that. So the league, in a way, if they're smart and they want their superstars playing more games, what they could do now is schedule a nationally televised game on a back-to-back. Thus, if a superstar is close to hitting that 65 game mark, he's gonna play that back-to-back, because now on the nationally televised game on the second leg, he's gonna have to play because now they're gonna find the teams. And this rule at the same time will please their television partners and not make the NBA look like, oh, we're forcing our guys to play more games even though they might be hurt. It's a very crafty way that they're getting around things, especially from a PR standpoint. And that's just one layer to it. And a prime example of this is in the beginning of the season when you seen James Harden in his last few days in Philly, when they had a nationally televised game in which they had James Harden sitting on the bench. This game was on TNT, and ESPN had actually inquired about a TNT broadcast of why James Harden was sitting on the bench. And they even went as far as to having Woj tweet it out, which we all know that's one of their biggest and most visible NBA analysts. They had him tweet that out, and they also had him tweet out an article that they made just talking about the overall topic. I've never seen one media entity actually vouch for their competitor so much in that circumstance. So that tells you how dire it was for TNT and ESPN to make sure that the superstars are playing in these nationally televised games, especially if the NBA is going to ask them for a ton of money on the next TV deal. So in this one layer of this whole scenario, we have the mega superstars who normally get the max contracts. They're not only going up against the 65 game rule, they're also going up against the nationally televised games that are going to be on ESPN and TNT. They're going up against that rule at the same time while trying to balance and qualify for their supermax contracts. So that's just one dynamic that's playing out with the 65 game rule. But another layer to this is also how the players union is organized, because the way it's always been structured, it's scheduled for a lot of miscommunication. That's why you see the star players now all of a sudden coming out after the new CBA is already signed. Now with the players union, the way it's constructed is that each team has a representative. And just on that base level, this is where things are going to start, looking a little funny in the light. Most teams elect a player representative almost as if it's a burden. Like it's almost like a cleanup job, like a janitor job. It's almost like doing laundry. You see some teams elect a player that's super young, or just a player that really has no voice in that locker room. A role player that might be the 13th to 15th guy on the bench. That's their player representative. And it even goes as far as 7 teams having no representatives at all. That's how little they care about it. And all these representatives from each team are supposed to come together and vote for 9 vice presidents, who basically have to come together and then, kind of organize themselves and speak to the other top brass of the Players Association to then communicate to the league. That's where you see vice presidents like CJ McCollum, Grant Williams, Harrison Barnes, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell. There's 9 of these guys that are supposed to come together, and then that's when they speak to the head of the association, and then that head of the association, or just those group of members, they then bargain with the league. But on a fundamental level, just starting out with their players' representatives, that's where everything begins at. They don't even take that shit serious from team to team. So how are all those representatives supposed to come together, then vote for the vice presidents and make sure that the vice presidents have an understanding of what's going on overall and then communicate that going forward? And most unions in America are kind of set up this way. That's why sometimes you see corruptions within unions. It sort of plays out like that childhood game where everyone gets in a circle and then one person tells someone something in the ear, and by the time it goes around, it comes out completely different, and you don't know who said what, who changed the whole phrase or anything. And the NBA owners, in a way, are directly involved of the players even electing a representative, because with all the obligations the players are going through with their teams, they may have a coach say, oh yeah, you guys, you got to vote a representative. So just choose somebody that's going to be the team representative and blah, blah, blah. They kind of brush over it because the coach is not even involved in that scenario, or the organization in a way are not supposed to be involved. they sort of remind teams that they got to do that. And it's not like the owner's going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, guys, make time out to speak about what you're going to tell your player rep. So fundamentally, the foundation of the Players Association is already flawed. The onus is really on the players to come together and make sure that they're having meetings maybe quarterly or weekly or monthly and actually elect a person who has a voice and respect in the locker room. And for those of you watching the video version of this, here's a list of all the representatives for some of these teams. And as you can see, it tends to be the guys that pretty much don't really have a voice within that locker room. And just even with the team dynamic, they don't really have that much power on the team. There's very few franchises, maybe one or two, actually have a star player who actually represents the team, like the Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges, Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers, or Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets. But for the most part, it's either role players representing these teams, or about 70 of these teams don't even give a fuck enough to even vote a person in to represent the players. So overall, the owners seem like they kind of knocked out a few birds with one stone. I'm not going to say two birds with one stone. I'm going to say quite a few. They kind of, from a PR standpoint, made it look good that they give the players a higher bulk of the revenue, while at the same time in the back end, because of the 65-game rule, the players who normally qualify for the Supermax deals now have to fight over that hurdle, as Tyrese Halliburton alone is probably going to be the first victim to fall on this, where he's set up to lose about $41 million. So if the superstar players don't play enough games to actually make All NBA, thus qualifying for Supermax deals, at the end of the day, how much of the revenue is going back towards the players? It's not like the $41 million Tyrese could miss out on is going to go somewhere else, or they're just going to spread it out to the rest of the team. And the next part to it is that they satisfy their TV partners in a way, because the NBA has control of the schedule. So what they can do now is actually schedule star players nationally televised games and make sure that it's the second leg of a back-to-back, because they're going to have the pressure in the first game to try to not miss it so they can hit the threshold of 65 games. And then the team has pressure the next day to play that player in a nationally televised game, because they're going to get fined if he sits out. So you start to see on the surface level the way the league makes something look, but on the back end, they're getting their agendas done. And with them setting up a situation where the star players have to play more games, their TV partners end up winning in this whole situation, thus equates to more money for the league, as they're going to possibly get more bidders, or just the current partners, TNT and ESPN, is going to have to fork up more money because the product gets better, as most of the influx of the television money is due to stars. So it is what it is. The league definitely has pressure to make sure star players are playing, because right now they're about to enter into these negotiations and a lot of TV people are spilling out the beans. The timing of just random sources releasing information. You got TV people talking about how the league didn't really care in the beginning phases of their last TV deal about fixing the rest policy when it was brought up to them. But now all of a sudden, with that deal expiring, they're so concerned now. So the pressure is definitely on for the league, and this 65-game rule is probably not going to go nowhere, as it's set to expire in 2030. So the officiating in the NBA couldn't have chosen a worser time to start acting up, more than now with the gambling and just the influx of money coming in, the league being in bed with those companies. And I'm going to get to this breakdown of how much money is being made state by state. But right now, the league, even the shitty teams, you got the coaches bitching. Like, this is crazy. This is unprecedented. I've never seen this before. The great teams, you got the coaches complaining. You got the teams in the middle, the coaches are complaining. And the teams that have no expectations. This shit is crazy. Let's first hear from the Detroit Pistons coach, Monty Williams, as he believed that they were in the wrong in the very last play of the game. But by the time the 2-minute report came out, it kind of came into light that the refs end up missing 2 critical calls that would have put the Knicks in a completely different situation in which they would have had the advantage. But let's look at Coach Monty Williams complain about a situation in which he shouldn't even been in a position to win the game.
Where's the New York media now? The absolute worst call of the season. No call. And enough's enough. We've done it the right way. We've called the league. We've sent in clips. We're sick of hearing the same stuff over and over again. We had a chance to win the game, and the guy dove into Asar's legs. and there was a no call. That's an abomination. You cannot miss that in an NBA game, period. And I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of our guys asking me, what more can we do, coach? That situation is exhibit A to what we've been dealing with all season long, and enough's enough. You cannot dive into a guy's legs in a big-time game like that and there be a no call. It's ridiculous, and we're tired of it. We just want a fair game called, period. And I got nothing else to say. We want a fair game, and that was not fair. I'm done.
Damn, he just walked away like a woman with a scorned heart, man. Jesus. What really was an abomination was the missed 3-second call in which Jalen Duren was in the paint for the whole Knicks offensive possession with the official standing right in front of him. Once again, the officiating in the NBA has chosen a very unique time where the outcomes of these games are being questioned, especially with the influx of gambling money coming in. Let's take a look at Taylor Jenkins, coach of the Grizzlies, another fucking team with no expectations, complain about the officiating.
Sure, saddle up. One of the most poorly officiated games I've ever seen, recorded, I'm fine with it. Fucking atrocious. Plays 23 minutes and is in the paint all night. He's one of the most professional players in this league and gets a double technical foul. And the excuse I get is that he's charging at an official. It's called de-escalation. 29 free throws to 13, and I'm not that coach. You can go back in history, I've done this one other time. Our team is competing their asses off. Competing their asses off. And this is what happens. The interactions right now with the officials, complete disrespect. I know what's coming. It's unbelievable the looks on the faces when I'm trying to engage in conversation to defend our guys that are busting their tail right now. Busting their tail. And Jaren Jackson's one of the most professional guys. And if you go watch the play, 2 possessions in a row, he gets hacked underneath the basket, 0 free throw attempts. I'm not trying to put a name on a jersey and this guy should earn these fouls and all that stuff. Watch the game. 29 free throws to basically like there was 7. And then at the end of the game, a few more added. I don't understand it when guys are competing their tails off. And we got stuff we can clean up. Sometimes we're grabbing, we're holding, and one's like, oh man, here. In the heat of the battle, when conversations are trying to be had, notices trying to be made on things that are happening, and there's not the enforcement of it. It blows my mind. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Our guys are competing their tails off. We got to play better.
This right here is about the 5th complaint I've heard from a coach where they're pointing out things that are already in the rule book that's happening on the court, and it still does not even get addressed. And Coach Mike Brown even has stated the refs told him something different than what's on the rule book. There's something going on right now in the league with the fucking officiating and the way the rules are being interpreted. I mean, god damn, you got teams that are pretty much tanking and they're still complaining about the calls.
We got to coach better, we got to play better. But I don't get tonight whatsoever. Again, I'm going to go back to the interactions. Stern, nothing, stonewall, ignoring, and then you wonder why our guys are trying to compete. I don't get it. I look forward to watching the tape, getting responses to when I send clips in, all that stuff to see what should have happened. And you wonder why. Haven't done this most of my career, all that stuff, but I got to defend my guys when they're competing their tail off. And we're not trying to lose our heads. We're trying to go out and win basketball games and try to play better. It's as simple as that. We're trying to play better. We're trying to play better.
So with the officiating coming into question, and at the same time, as we all know, more states are coming into the sports betting industry, and the numbers are outrageous. Now is not a time for a league's integrity and just the outcomes to be questioned. I mean, just the amount of money that's being wagered. $19 billion in New York alone. New Jersey, 11 billion. Illinois, 11. Nevada, 8. Pennsylvania, 7. Ohio, 7 billion. Arizona, 6 billion. Virginia, 5. Colorado, 5. Massachusetts, 4. Just overall, the U.S. sportsbook industry has increased about 44%. And that's with them receiving a bulk of their revenue from New York State, who end up gobbling about 51% in tax revenue. So despite all that, they're still eating well and have a 44% jump. And just the NFL season alone caused them to have a 22% increase, along with the NBA's television partner launching their own sportsbooks, ESPN Bet. So a lot of these things are intertwined, and just the league's officiating and just integrity of the game, these outcomes are just coming into question. Now couldn't be any more of a worse time for this shit to happen. And the transparency of these 2-minute reports is not helping. For us to think that the Pistons game should have ended one way, finding out in the 2-minute report all the missed calls that should have put the Knicks in a better advantage is crazy. And it's only a matter of time for one of these sports books to end up losing big time because of the officiating. But hey, we'll see how this plays out. It's still not stopping the money from flowing in. I'm curious, what would the breakdown be as far as the bets that are taking place with the NBA teams? What's the percentage of that total revenue pot? Because the NFL is eating a big portion of that, but the NBA is enjoying a nice revenue split with the gambling companies. But the officiating, man, it's got to be on point. This season it's been a mess so far. But we'll see how it plays out. So that's all I have for today. You fellas definitely hit up the mailbag with your questions. I'll feature it as a part of a segment on the show. And until next time, peace.